Welcome to the Love, Sex, and Leadership podcast, where you can discover simple tantric teachings to embody your true power, awaken your soul's wisdom, and live an inspired life as a natural, intuitive, and heart-centered leader. But imagine those times in your life, those situations, inviting you to close your eyes, go inside. It can be challenging to keep looking inside when our outside world is often telling us to look outside. There's fear there, there's worry, there's things we need to deal with. But tuning into those moments in your life when somebody else's yes was more important than your no. And breathe that moment into your body and let it out with some sound. Again, breathe that in, that moment, that situation, that occurrence. Let it out with sound. It's safe to be in these bodies. It's safe to be here. It's safe to feel. Your fullest expression is welcome in this life. Your fullest expression is here to be received. And there may be a lot of thoughts, beliefs, patterns, conditions that have tried to tell you otherwise. But from your root, from that first core of your creation, of your body temple, maybe even in the womb, there was a part of you thinking, is it safe to arrive? Is it safe to be here? And you are here as the spiritual being having this human experience, remembering the natural intrinsic safety that's alive inside of you. Another minute or two here of breathing, and inviting those that have their legs crossed or their arms crossed, really open up your body. Open the body. Because there's a lot of ways that we are inhibiting ourselves from really opening. We feel almost confronting sometimes when we open ourselves, when we open our root, when we open ourselves to the challenges of life, the fear of life, when our trust, when our focus is put on someone from the outside needs to make me feel safe. Somebody, something, some institution, some parent, some governmental body is there to make you safe. And what if all of that was a bunch of bullshit? Of course, there are things in the outside world that can impact your safety, but what if you, from this moment forward in your life, began to reference point safety as an inside job, not to something you're trying to find from somebody, from some partner, from some parent, but actually you felt it every time your feet connected to the earth, every time you felt your sit bones on the earth. You knew no matter what that God didn't mess up with you. You are powerful beyond belief, and that your very essence of life is here for you and not against you. What would change? What would shift? As if there's one deep longing I have in my heart for each one of you leaving from this space after our time together, is that you know no matter what, that you are loved and you are safe. Breathe that in. When you're ready, gently, slowly opening your eyes. And open your eyes from a place of curiosity, a place of meeting the others in this room from the holding of they're like this, I recognize this in me, but actually, what if each being here, each person in your life was giving you the opportunity to feel what you need to feel, express what you need to express, and to day by day return back home into the comfort of your own being? And just a show of hands, how many of you at different times in your life have felt incredibly unsafe in your surroundings? Had layers of fear, of worry, of doubt? Yeah, look around. You're not alone. But that also means that each and every person, just as we saw yesterday, has come from a different country, a different background, a different set of circumstances. And the thing that I definitely have seen through these years is that there's no mistake in your life. There's no mistake in every single situation that you've gone through. And I'm sure, just the same as myself, Tara, everyone in this room, you've gone through some pretty challenging ones. But what I do know is that every single difficult thing that you've gone through has not only brought you to be a powerful creator of your own reality, it's also brought you into this room. And I guarantee that each one of you has impact to a lot of other people who aren't in this room, who are sometimes forgetting about that safety themselves. Because the reality is, a lot of the things that we're sold, that we see in media, that's on Hollywood, that's on the news, is this sensationalized fear that's almost trying to tense our nervous system and run us around with anxiety and fear in life. And for me, one of the best things I ever did that had to do with returning back to the safety of my own body is diminishing a lot of that outside input by about 98%. I won't say complete, because I still like to have somewhat of an idea what's happening in the world, but most of it is a bunch of bullshit, sensationalized from media and marketing and everything else. But what I do know is when I put my feet on the earth, I eat the food that nourishes my body, I make love, I connect to something that no doctor can ever teach me, no doctor can ever give me, no media can ever tell me that no matter what happens in my life, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm protected. And a lot of groups, a lot of humans, a lot of people might try to tell you otherwise. But before we do any rising of the chakras into more expanded states of being, without the roots connecting into the earth, then we're just like a kite flying around without a string. We're not grounded. And if you spent enough time in spiritual scenes, you've probably met some pretty fucking ungrounded people. Anyone? The sun is shining. And it's beautiful to be in joy. But if it's ungrounded joy, then we're just like a seaweed in the sea without any level of connection to our make a sound from that. A little deeper, and that sound, that and in the sounding, in the expression, just as I said last night, some things that you're doing through this week might feel strange. Because some part of you at some point when you were sounding and expressing as a child, as a young adult, some parental figure, someone said, don't be so expressive. That's not how a good boy or good girl should be. Okay, so we got put in these fucking boxes. Sorry, there's also a sailor inside of me, so between Tara and myself, there's definitely some swearing that comes through. I'm sorry. And I'm not. That box that you may have put yourself into, or society put you into, that was probably to create a level of safety. Because as I mentioned yesterday, the nervous system that rose from a parasympathetic to a sympathetic state didn't know how to beat pillows, didn't express, or maybe did know how, and then someone told them not to. Some parental figure said, no, 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 you're too much, you're too loud. Who's ever been told they're too much or too loud? Quiet yourself down, be small, be like all the other boys and girls. Why are you so different? Well, the invitation this week is to go back into that intrinsic knowing inside of you that's unapologetically expressed with attunement, with awareness, and with safety. This afternoon, at some point today, we'll be going into some deeper emotional expression. And you might find yourself in a room where an entire group of people with sound and expression and fears are coming up like, uh-oh, this is that crazy place that mom and dad told me I should never be. This is where all those crazies are. No, this is actually a place where people are getting free. So in the expression of our aliveness, it doesn't mean we need to be in the supermarket yelling and screaming. But certainly, those of you that are parents, I'm sure you've had times when you've seen your toddler that doesn't give a fuck about society around. Who knows what I'm talking about? The toddler's like, I don't care. I'm upset. And all I want to do is express. Oh, no, no. Your expression's making me uncomfortable. Please stop. And so what do we learn? We learn to inhibit and to get small and to stop our expression. We learn to just become these very compartmentalized beings that don't know how to have an expression alive inside. And so there's a reprogramming that's happening this week. There's reprogramming that's starting at your root, at the core of all the safety. And every time that there's like, I might be a little afraid, lean into it. Just as those two beautifully courageous beings did this morning. They leaned into the sound inside of them. Not to be showy, but to just lean into that edge to say, wow, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to jump off the edge without a parachute, because that's going to hurt. But I want to be able to lean into the edge to discover inside where that place is where you can actually expand and grow into the naturalness of who you really are. And that to me is all boundaries are, all safety is actually knowing inside yourself the naturalness that has been there from the beginning, but maybe has been taken away from other influences. When you know that naturalness and that sensitivity inside of you, then when you're interacting with another or someone's interacting with you, you can very clearly feel their yes or no before their words have ever even been expressed. Who knows what I'm talking about? There's like an attunement field that starts to be created. And that's the attunement field that we're cultivating together. A place where I can know my safety, Lorinda can know hers, Tara can know hers, and then we have a deeper arena of where we're able to play. But without the roots connecting into the earth, grounded, connected to our natural, inherent way of being, then we're just floating around having peak experiences but unable to integrate or ground them. This isn't a week of peak experiences. This is a week of learning and remembering actually simple tools to apply this into day-to-day life. That's where change happens. Not from a peak high experience you have on the beach in Bali, which some of you might have that experience through this week. But it's about taking that experience and knowing every single morning when you wake up, God hasn't made any mistakes, and no matter what, you have safety. And some of you, depending your environment, might have worlds around you that literally feel like life and death can happen. I was teaching a retreat a few years back, when October 11th happened in Israel, with Israelis in the room. There was a deep fear of safety in their bodies that you could feel. Because literally in front of them, there's a war happening. So our outside world might feel like there's a war happening, but what I do know, and having a lot of friends who are still there, or other war zones in the world, is that no matter what's happening on the outside, if you intrinsically know yourself as safe, held, and protected, not a protection that someone's there to give to you, but a sovereignty and a wholeness inside of you, then you're a force to reckon with on this planet. And that soul-inspired purpose, which we'll arrive to later in the week, is going to naturally vibrate through every cell of your body, because that's your natural essence. That's your natural way of why you've incarnated, why you've come into this form. Give yourself a little pat on the back, maybe even a little pat on the asshole. I'm safe. Yes, I'm here. Deep breath in, letting out the sounds.
Let's take another one of those breaths. Shake it out a little. What Aaron just has spoken into is like a paradigm shift of how to navigate life. So just know that all of us sitting here have had decades of conditioning, of programming, of which the first 7 years of our life, where our neural pathways are forming, when we're learning what it is to be human, and there's that real nervous system development, that's where the strongest imprint is. So where all this work around safety and trauma and emotional release and healing goes back to again and again and again is the imprint from whoever our primary role models were in life, which for most of us as being our mother, our biological mother, and our biological father. Some people got brought up by their grandparents, some people were adopted. So whatever your mother and father's imprint was from their mother and father, that's what you've received as the transmission of what it means to be loved, of what it means to feel safe, of what it means to feel grounded and supported and protected. And hands up if you had two amazing conscious parents who gave you a transmission of the clarity and purity of that. Right, okay, I will probably challenge that at some stage. Right, and it's amazing, like to have conscious parents is incredible, but I've never met a human being that's perfect. So even if we have Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi or whoever role model we want to, have as the ideal masculine and feminine role models, we're human, so we're going to have unconscious shadows which are going to be imprinted upon us. And so that generational patterns that goes from one generation to another can end with us. And I think that's a big part of why these spaces and people like us are all gathered to this type of body of work, is because they didn't know better. They didn't know that it was safe to express their emotional body. They didn't learn that they could set boundaries and go, no, I don't like the way that you're talking to me. Or I can't do this job anymore, and I want to move, or I want to do something different in my life, and to make choices that align with their truth. Whereas we have so much freedom in this life, and we're in these spaces learning that actually when we listen to our body and we trust our emotions and what they're showing us, that we can create massive change in our lives. And those parts of us that have been shut down, unloved, unheard, unexpressed from childhood right up until this point of time, they all live in our nervous system. Unfortunately, they haven't gone anywhere. And all they need is your presence and your love. And right there is inner union, when we can give ourselves the present of that masculine energy that witnesses without judgment, without going into a story, without risk assessing, without analyzing, without problem solving, without trying to fix, just being present. I'm with you. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to believe my mind and all of the distractions that it tells me I must do right now. I'm just going to be present with whatever it is that I'm feeling right now that feels uncomfortable. And then we bring in the love of that more yin, feminine energy that validates your experience. Because most of you here probably aren't validating your experience, you're judging it. And I certainly was until I got taught this practice that I'll guide you into, which is whatever you're feeling, whether it is fear, whether it's anxiousness, whether it's overwhelm, whether it's not good enough, it's fair enough. It's totally fair enough. There is a reason that you are feeling that way based on whatever your life experience has been. So rather than judging it and therefore resisting it, love it and be compassionate towards yourself. Just like you would a child, just like you would a friend. If someone came up to you and was like, oh God, I feel so overwhelmed and anxious, I don't like my job anymore, I'm so scared to leave, I don't know who I am without that, are you going to go, well, that's stupid? Why would you feel that? That's just dumb. Don't feel that. Look, they're not feeling that. What's wrong with you? And that's what we do to ourselves. And if you're practicing meditation, which is a foundation of Tantra, it's a foundation of being human, then you're going to catch the thought. Because meditation, as you'll learn this week, is the practice of observation. And then, rather than being the emotion, of being the thought process, there's separation between the two and you can observe it. And when you can observe it, rather than being caught in it, but you can observe it, then you can hold space for it and explore that. Let's receive a breath together. And that's what it is to be human. That's what wholeness is. This path of wholeness, inner union, awakening, isn't about perfection. It's about embracing and allowing and exploring every single part of ourselves. And if the spiritual theory or wisdom that we are all one is true, and that we live in a reflective universe, then whatever triggers you in another is happening right in here. And that's where life gets really interesting. That's where mastery of the shadows really starts expanding you. Where you can take those triggers of like, oh, I feel angry, oh, I feel hurt, oh, I feel neglected, oh, I feel scared. And have a curiosity and a courage to explore that within yourself, to take the emphasis off whatever the external story is and experience is, and to bring that into your body, and that is Tantra. That the first step in your exploration of whatever you're experiencing in life is in here. Because if you're constantly trying to deal with your triggers through the external, good luck. Right? It will just send you into an endless projection that the problem is outside of you. Now, that does not mean that you don't address the external. This is really important. You are going to have the conversation with the person. You are going to have set the boundary. You are going to change things in your life. But you're going to do that from a clear space of like inner courage and knowing if you've explored it internally. And I've leapt off many proverbial cliffs in my life, leaving behind a lot of safety, what I thought was safety. And the reason that I've been able to do that is because whatever it is in my life that's causing me anything that's not in my ease and joy, I explore. So end of last year, I went through 2.5, 3 months of intense anxiety. So full on. These 3 amazing people held me in their arms, all dramatic on the floor, shaking, crying, like a complete mess. And I was conscious that I was in a complete mess state, and I was kind of okay with it. I'm like, all right, this is happening for a reason. What's going on? And I used all the tools that you're going to be using here today. And by doing so, I very clearly knew what I had to do, which was actually to leave the academy, the Embodied Awakening Academy. It came back. But I had to look at the areas in my life that were causing the anxiety. And it was what I was holding, managing an academy, a business, 17 staff, the dynamic between Raven and and when I felt that in my body, for the first time in years, I actually had the natural courage to say, I can't do this anymore, because I was so listening to my body at a whole level that I hadn't before. And in doing so, what shifted from that space is beyond my wildest dreams, actually. I have more spaciousness in my life than I've ever had. So I'm not working half as much as I used to. I have more abundance in my life than I've ever had, even though I had to turn down clients and events for a while. The relationship that Raven and I have, that is just this beautiful soul connection contract of service to humanity, has taken on a whole new level. And the Academy is now really embodying what it means to lead with the feminine rather than the masculine. And I have Raven and the whole team going, thank you for going through your 3-month nervous breakdown crazy period, because we are like, this needed to shift in the Academy. So I say that to share that I am not perfect, and I'm sure I'll have another meltdown at some stage about something, maybe not. I've had a huge quantum shift in the last 3 months, 4 months, and I just went and lived in Costa Rica in the forest out of nowhere. I was like, that's what I have to do. And I reached my threshold because I listened to my body. I listened to my body. And what's come from that is miraculous. And every time that myself or my friends do that, and they be with the pain and they explore it, and they go back to where that pain started, and they reparent that and hold that self, that small self, then life changes. And we have clarity on what our trajectory